Hello and welcome. My name is Mary, and today we're going to be talking through something that becomes incredibly important as the wedding season approaches. We're going to talk and we're going to run a backend audit for your business because busy season doesn't just test your creativity, your planning skills, or your client experience. It tests your systems. And the reality is this: busy season doesn't create all the chaos, it just exposes it. So today I'm going to show you where most wedding businesses start to struggle operationally and how you can identify the gaps in your backend before the season gets all over the place. So I'm going to be presenting as well, and I'd love to get all your questions on the Facebook group, so feel free to do it, and I'll get back to you. Before we begin, and I'm going to keep moving through my slides, I want to talk a little bit about me so you know where this perspective is coming from. So I'm the founder of Systems Lane, where I help service-based businesses organize the backend of their operations so they can grow without the chaos. But before that, I was a wedding planner myself. So I from inside of the industry as well. I also worked as a coach and a general manager for the Wedding Academy, where I supported wedding professionals building and scaling their businesses. And across all these roles, I kept seeing the same pattern. The businesses that struggled the most during busy season weren't the less talented. They weren't the less hardworking. Their backend simply wasn't designed to support the level of the demand that they were experiencing. So I became an operations strategist for wedding professionals, so you can focus on planning and being the CEO instead of just being a full-time admin support. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking and exploring today. Something important that I want to share is that I also created a workbook. Throughout the presentation, I recommend using this workbook that you have attached to this session somewhere probably underneath this video. As we move through each system, you can quickly reflect on how things are currently operating in your businesses, and I share some tips and tricks here and there. The goal today is not to overwhelm you with improvements. The goal is to help you identify a few systems that matter the most before the business season begins so you can get them sorted before they kick you in the butt. So this is today's plan. This is what we're going to be covering today. First, we'll briefly look at the core systems that every business runs on, no exceptions. Then we'll run a simply backend audits for your business. Very simple, very quick, but I think will be really functional, very, very practical for you. Then we're going to identify where these higher risk operation gaps usually appear. And finally, we're going to talk about how you decide what to fix first, because trying to improve everything at once is rarely effective. I haven't seen that in the past myself. So I want to talk to you now about the core systems, and hopefully I'm not going too quickly. I just want to ensure that I can cover as much as possible today. So every business, no matter the size, operates through 5 core systems. And these systems exist whether you have intentionally designed them or not. The difference between a business that runs smoothly during busy season and on constantly feels overwhelmed usually comes down to this and how clear all these systems are. So we're going to go for the first one. The first system is marketing. This is how the inquiries enter to your business. It includes your website, your social media, your referral system, your wedding directories, and any content that attracts couples to you. The second system is sales. And this is how and what converts this inquiry craft in this marketing system into a confirmed booking. So it includes how you respond to inquiries, how consultations work, how proposals are sent, and how clients sign and pay and go through the whole onboarding process. The third system is delivery. And this is the actual client experience, right? So everything from planning, communications, timelines, vendor coordination that doesn't have to be always related to the client, right? Vendor coordination and the execution of the wedding itself. The fourth system is going to be the admin. And admin is the operational backbone of your business. It includes contracts, payments, documents, communication records, templates, anything that you might have, all the information needed to keep everything organized behind the scenes. Whether you have a team or not, it doesn't really matter. You need to have the system in place. And the fifth system is team coordination. And this one is really interested in the wedding industry because you not only could have team members, but also you're going to be having contractors and suppliers, right? So even if you work with a small team, freelancers, or the vendors, there still needs to be clarity around responsibilities, handovers, and who owns each of his tasks. When these 5 systems are structured, your business can handle a higher demand without creating constant stress and chaos. But even when one of these systems is unclear, the pressure will show quickly during busy season in any of the systems. And that's where we're going to be auditing them. So this is next. Strong businesses, what is creating? Before we jump into the audit itself, I want to show you what strong systems actually give you. Because when people hear the word systems, they sometimes imagine something complicated or really corporate or robotic and not personalized, and we don't want that. In reality, systems are simply what allows you and your business to run without everything having to depend on you personally, remembering things, having everything in your brain. So the backend is structured well. A few things might start happening almost immediately. One of them, of course, is having more time. You will gain more time because you are not repeating the same explanations or reinventing the wheel or fixing small issues all day, every day, just putting off fires. The other one is the less firefighting, because things have a clear path now and they have a clear process. So it's going to be easier for you. The next one is the team becomes calmer. And again, it can be your team, it could be your contractors, but you want to make sure you share this confidence and this way of everything is under control, right? So when your team becomes calmer, it's just basically because they know who are responsible for each of the tasks and where to find the information. So it's easier for them to manage their work. And then your client's experience is a smoother journey because the communication becomes proactive instead of reactive. And that's ultimately what we want for them, right? To convert them more and better. And lastly, it will create more capacity for bookings. This is one of the biggest outcomes, of course. And the business will gain this capacity without increasing your stress level. And that's really what systems are about, right? I want to be completely clear though, systems don't usually remove the work, okay? They work towards removing the chaos around the work. And delegation will allow you to free up your time and do the things that you should be doing. And once the busy season starts and kicks in, the structure that you built makes an enormous difference in how the season actually feels like for you and your team and your clients, of course. So I also want to share this because I thought that I wanted to talk to you about where the busy season usually starts to break the back end of a wedding business. Something, again, really important. Most businesses feel like things are running fairly smoothly until the volume increases, right? Until we start having more volume of leads and more clients or more deliverables, right? And suddenly small gaps become very visible. One of the first things that actually happen is inquiries responses start to slowing down. You're juggling weddings, timelines, client questions, vendor coordination, and suddenly responding to your new leads will become harder to keep up. So that's the problem, number one. Another thing that happens is client communication becomes reactive instead of proactive. Instead of the business guiding the process, you start answering questions as they come in. Then there is the team coordination. When things get busy, people start asking more questions, right? Where's the timeline? Who's handling this client? Has this been sent? yet or hasn't been done yet. And that's not usually because the team isn't capable. It's because the structure around the work isn't completely clear, and it brings stress and overwhelm and frustration among the team members. And finally, many of the processes that keep the business running are often inside of someone's head, probably yours, right? They're not documented anywhere. They're just things that you know from experience or from someone that taught you. And they work fine when things are slower. But when you suddenly have multiple weddings, multiple clients, and multiple deadlines overlapping, that's when those gaps start to create stress. And that's exactly why running a backend audit before the busy season begins can make such a big difference. Because when the systems are clear, the business can handle increase in demand much more calmly. And who doesn't want that, right? All right, so let's start with the first system to review, and that's the inquiries and lead management. This is one of the most important systems in your business because every booking starts here, right? So the first thing I want you to think about is very simple. Where do my inquiries actually enter in your business? Take a moment and picture it. And of course, remember to use the workbook. Maybe they're coming through your website, maybe Instagram messages, maybe emails, referrals, any other wedding platforms that you have, Facebook groups. Most of the businesses actually have 4 or 5 different places where inquiries arrive. And that's completely normal. The important question is, where are those inquiries tracked? Is there one place where you can clearly see every lead that comes in? Or do they live across different inboxes and messages and different platforms? Because when inquiries are scattered, it becomes easy for one to quietly disappear. You know, you just listen things through the cracks. They're not being followed up correctly, or they're not being tracked for KPIs later. We don't want that to happen. Another thing to look for is the response time. Couples usually reach out to multiple vendors at once, maybe multiple wedding planners, maybe multiple catering venues, whatever it is, right? So they will be reaching out to multiple vendors at once and inquiring. So the business that responds quickly and clearly often has a huge advantage here. They'll look for your response process. Let's see how that works for you. Is the way you reply consistent? Or does every response depend on the moment, the platform, how busy your day, your stress levels, if you're too busy handling a baby and cooking and everything at once? And then finally, of course, we want to also check the follow-up process, right? Because many leads don't book immediately. Of course, this isn't an impulse buy. So they might be comparing vendors, checking availability, or discussing options. And if there is not a structured follow-up system, those potential bookings often disappear without anyone even realizing it. And this is where the busy season can amplify this problem. Sorry. It feels like I'm speaking way too fast. When inquiries increase, your time becomes more limited, of course. The business with clear inquiry systems keep converting the leads, and that's what we want. So while others start losing opportunities simply because things become harder to track, you will be taking advantage of it. Once a couple decides they want to work with you, the next system becomes incredibly important. So let's talk about it as well. Let's go through it. And the next system is booking and onboarding. There we go. Ideally, that transition should feel really smooth. This usually put a lot of pressure in, couples and yourself, of course. From the client's perspective, bookings should be really simple. You should be able to review the agreement, sign the contract, and pay the deposit without confusions or any extra steps that might cause more stress to them. But in many businesses, the booking process has slowly become a bit complicated over time. Maybe the contract is sent manually. Maybe the payment instructions are explained different each time or in different emails, a little bit at a time. Maybe the confirmation takes a while because you're busy with other clients, and that process isn't automated. None of these things seem to be a big problem individually, but together they create this type of friction, that we not only we want to avoid, but this is when the client momentum is at its highest. So we need to reassure and act confidently. Then comes the onboarding, right? And there we go. That's it. Which is usually what happens immediately after the client books, right? Is where you guide them through the working relationship. What information do you need from them? What happens next? What will they be hearing from you again? What should they be expecting during the planning process and the first couple of weeks or the first couple of months? Right? Feel free to add everything to the workbook so we can start then assessing your points later on. When onboarding is clear, clients feel confident and supported, right? So when it's unclear, clients start asking questions immediately. And that not only causes stress on them, but it also creates a lot of time-consuming tasks for you as well. So we want to be proactive on this. During this busy season, answering the same onboarding questions again and again quickly becomes exhausting, right? And for the both of you. So when you audit this system, the goal is simple. Booking should be easy and professional. Again, for you and for them. And the onboarding should ask and answer. They will be asking you probably 3 or 4 questions, and you should be answering in advance. You want to be proactive and answer most questions before the client needs to ask them. Once the couple is booked and onboarded, the next step becomes one of the ones that hold the entire experience together, right? Which is the delivery. Let's go through that slide. So this is client management, right? Every couple generates a lot of information here. You'll have vendor contracts, their contracts. You'll have probably a couple hundred emails, planning notes, timelines, vendor details, messages back and forth if you do WhatsApp or Telegram or whatever it is. So the question here is simple. Where does all that information actually live? Is it all stored in one central place where you and your team can easily see it? Or is it spread across emails and messages and documents and different tools? Because when the information is scattered, something very predictable starts happening here. And people start searching and spending a lot of time in looking for information instead of delivering. And you might be thinking, where did my timeline went, right? Where is it? Did we send this to the client? Did we confirm if this is ready? Who has the latest version of this document? And suddenly simple tasks now take longer than they should. A strong client management system solves this by giving every client one clear home. Could be a folder, could be a client portal, whatever it is that's working for you. It has to be easy to find and to be organized and to see and have visibility for all parties involved. A place where, there you go. A place where their timeline, communication, history, documents, and places, all these notes are really easy to access. That way, anyone involved in delivering, they can quickly understand the status of each couple, right? You want to have visibility yourself and all the parties involved as well. So you can also supervise this. Then during the busy season, that clarity becomes incredibly valuable, right? Because you don't want to waste time looking for folders. You don't want to waste time looking for documents and asking team members where to find it. Because the less time you spend searching for information, the most time you spend actually delivering that great experience that you have to offer. So make sure you organize your documents. Oops. What did I touch? There we go. So make sure you organize all these documents and let them be accessible for all these parties involved. It doesn't matter if it's team members, vendors, contractors, couples when needed. You can have different levels of access or editing rights, but everything being in one place will save your life here. But yeah, so when information is organized And another challenge that can appear during busy season is the team coordination. And let's go and discuss this, because this could get overwhelming really quickly as well. Because when the number of weddings increases, the number of moving parts increases too, right? More timelines, more vendors, more client communication, more team members you might need to hire, more little decisions happening throughout the day. And that's when a lot of the businesses start noticing that things slow down, right? Not because the team isn't capable again, but because the structure around the work isn't completely clear. So this first thing we want to do is to think about this. Does everyone knows their responsibilities, or do they wait for instructions? How reactive the team is. When responsibilities are clear, people can move forward quickly and confidently, right? But when they're unclear, the team tends to pause, check before acting, and suddenly a lot of small decisions start coming back to you, and you end up spending a lot of time answering those, like the support channel. Then, are the tasks clearly assigned, or most of them are shared verbally? That doesn't work very well, especially when you are busy, right? In many businesses, tasks are mentioned in conversations, messages, quick calls, and that works fine when things are calm. But once they get busy, verbal instructions become very easy to forget, misunderstood, or just basically look track of them, right? Or you to follow up on them, right? So, but we want to set up probably a project management tool. All the tasks, all the responsibilities should go to one place, even if you still communicate them through a phone call. And we want to make sure that everyone is aware who is in charge of each of them, right? Now, are handovers between team members or contractors or vendors are structured, or are a little bit improvised? Now, think about when work moves from one person to another. For example, from planning to execution, or from one team member to another team member. If that handover isn't structured, details can easily slip through the cracks, create misunderstandings. Mistakes will show up really easily here, right? Also, can the team move forward without you? Or does everything has to come back to you? And this is where many founders realize that they've unintentionally become the operation bottleneck. Not because they want to control everything, well, sometimes they do, but because the systems or documentation around delegation or the coordination aren't fully defined just yet. So we want to work with that as well. And lastly, do you have a clear process for onboarding or offboarding a team member or a client? We always want to think about those two. If those processes exist, the team can grow and evolve much more smoothly, and you can scale without having to manually onboard everyone, taking a small part of your team and your time to include a new team member. And this could be team, freelancers, contractors, vendors, whatever it is that you want to onboard and offboard, have that process really structured and set up. So it's easy for you to include someone else, and they can be up to date and up to speed really quickly for you. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel and have to have endless meetings to let them know how you work. But if they don't, every hire or team member ends up requiring a lot of manual explanation, a lot of meetings. Like I was saying, during this season is almost impossible, right? This is a kind of friction that it can slow you down mostly. Then, yeah, it's just not about if the team is capable. Most of the time, the team actually wants to take more ownership and move things forward. But when the responsibilities, tasks, handovers aren't completely clear, it just becomes really, it's just reactive, right? People naturally pause and check before acting. And that's when the funder slowly becomes the place where everything flows back to. And we don't want that to happen. We want you in your zone of genius. Probably not intentionally, you're not doing that on purpose, but just because the structure around the work isn't fully defined and people is a bit still confused. So now the easiest way to remove that friction is through something really simple. And well, easy to say, right? And this is the clear and repeatable processes. Now, let's look at the final system for the audits. And this is one of the, I would say, underestimated, because this is usually the last thing that we think about. And my first question for this is, what tasks are you repeating on every single wedding? And when you think about it, a lot of the work in the wedding business is actually very repeatable, even if it looks personable. The same onboarding steps, the same planning conversations between vendors, the same questions the couples have, the same vendor coordination, the same timeline preparation. So the real question becomes, are these steps documented or explained each time? How are you working in the business? In many businesses, the step exists, but they live inside of someone's head, right? Like we mentioned before. And there are things that they just know from experience, and they work fine until you're busy. Basically, the moment that someone else needs your help, suddenly you have to explain the same process over and over again. And well, you can let them reinvert the wheel as well and waste valuable time. And we don't want that either. So you end up explaining, or sometimes you end up doing it yourself. So the next thing to consider is this: could someone new, completely new in your business, can follow the process easily? Probably not documented yet, but even if it's in your head, is it easy for you to communicate? Is it easy for them to follow? If a new team member joined tomorrow, would they be able to understand how the work gets done? Or would most of the knowledge still live in conversations, recording, Loom videos, explanations, screenshots? That is really time consuming, I'd say. And that leads me to the next question. Do your processes support delegation or keeps the work depending on you? Because when processes are clear, delegation becomes much easier. People don't have to guess what the next step is. They don't have to interrupt you to check every single little detail. And they can simply follow a structure, right? And when these processes start really, start to improve, this is where the businesses operates at its best. They do not remove the work, as I said, but they remove the need to remember everything or ask everything, right? If everything lives in your head, they will always come back to you no matter what. And when the busy season arrives, that mental relief makes a huge difference for you. There we go. I will be sharing this as well because I also added a couple of notes as well that I would love for you to read when you have more time. I know that time is quite limited here, so I want to make sure you get all the information possible. So now that you looked at the 5 systems that hold your business together, and if not, please press pause, go through them. I will want this to circle all the answers as well. So you will be scoring each system from 1 to 5, and in your workbook, right? And this is a moment for you to, step back, look at your backend, how it's actually performing today, and you'll see a lot of cool reflection items for you. And you'll have 1 to 5, and basically, don't overthink it. Just go with your first instinct, and once you completed the exercise, come back and we'll look at what to do across all those scores. All right, so now that you've scored your systems, we want to think, okay, we might be thinking there are quite a few things here that could probably improve, and that's completely normal. Most businesses don't have perfectly structured systems, not even the wedding industry in general and across the board, right? But here's something important to remember. Do not try everything at once. Trying to improve 5 systems at the same time usually creates more overwhelm than progress. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to identify this one system that is creating the most daily friction in your business right now. So we're going to work on the low-hanging fruit. It could be a small task that you can be documented and outsourced to follow, to free you up some of your time so you can become the CEO of your business instead of a full operator. And think about the system that slows you down the most. The one that creates the most questions around your team and contractors. The one that makes your day feel harder than it needs to be. Because when you improve that area, the relief tends to be immediate. So you can things become clearer, communication improves, and the team does depend less on you, and you spend less time figuring things out. So you can start working on the rest of the systems. So instead of trying to perfect everything, focus on this one system that will create the biggest difference first. And I wanted to work on a couple of examples because it's easy said, but then when you see all your issues, you freeze. Okay, I feel like I need to fix everything at the same time, but let's look at them here quickly. Let's make this a little bit more practical. Here are a few examples of what daily friction might actually look like in a wedding business. Maybe inquiries are coming through multiple channels and it takes longer than you'd like to respond. Or sometimes a lead gets buried in messages and you realize later that you missed it. It's too late. That's usually a signal that the inquiry system needs attention. Another common one is when systems basically the system is not fully clear yet and clients ask the same onboarding questions again and again and again. And it could be things like, what happens next? When are we meeting again? What do you need from us? And that's usually a sign that the onboarding process isn't answering those questions clearly yet. You might also notice that your team regularly asks you things like, who's handling this client? Or where's the timeline? Or where's this document? Or did we send this already? And that usually means that the team coordination system or project management tool needs a clear structure, or you need one, right? It doesn't matter if you don't have full team members yet. This also applies to contractors, BAs, vendors, whoever's involved in one of the projects. Another one very common is when the information is spread across emails, documents, and messages. So when someone needs to, find something, work on something, the first step becomes searching instead of actioning or asking you, which is not ideal. When someone spends time searching, work naturally slow down. It's a distraction. When you look at these examples, you'll probably recognize the one or two are very familiar, right? And that's usually a good indication of which systems deserve attention first. And the interesting thing here is that when you improve the system or the right system, the impact tends to show up very quickly. So that's going to be great for you. When you improve the systems, this is what should happen, right? The changes start showing up very quickly in your day-to-day work. It doesn't take months to notice the difference. And usually the first thing you notice is the clients know what to expect and your team knows what they are responsible for, and suddenly you're not answering the same question over and over again. The second is that tends to improve this is when processes are clear, work doesn't get stuck waiting for clarifications. Simple, this is very simple, right? Things keep moving forward. Then there is what many founders appreciate very quickly. And then instead of repeating explanations, searching for information and putting things aside or putting off fires all day, the structure of the systems will start doing the work for you, right? So you will start working towards less manual work and more proactive work. Not the reaction will not be so chaotic anymore. And one that is often underestimated is the decision fatigue for this emotional and emotional ROI, right? So when systems and steps are clear, you don't have to constantly stop and think about what should happen next. The system is already defining the path. And that mental clarity gives you a huge difference once business season starts to kick in, right? And this is really what strong systems give you. Not less work, but less chaos around the world, around the work, which is fantastic. And everyone should work on this. Now, if you went through the exercise and noticed that one or more systems scored below a 4 on each of them, that's usually a sign that you, backend, could benefit from a deeper review. And that's exactly the work I do through something called Wedding Business Backend Audit. During this session, we'll take a close look at your operational side of your business, right? We'll review your inquiry systems and your booking and onboarding flow and your delivery process and how this is structured behind the scenes. Then we're going to be identifying the gaps that could create the stress once the season begins, which is usually very easy to identify for us. And then we're going to be prioritizing what needs to be worked on first. Most importantly, we prioritize these systems that make the biggest difference first, right? Because the goal isn't to rebuild your entire business, it's to identify the improvements that will reduce the friction and make your season run more smoothly. If that sounds helpful, you can learn more or book a session at the link on the screen here. I believe, I'm not sure where I'm going to be looking at, but you can click on that link, systemsline.com/wedding pros, and you'll find all the information. And whether you decide to run the audits yourself or get support with it, the most important thing is to simplify you will be simplifying your systems and simply start reviewing your systems before the season begins, because that's what we want to avoid, the season chaos. All right, thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time to go through this backend audit with me. And let me tell you something, business season will arrive regardless, right? So the difference is whether it feels chaotic or whether your business runs through this season smoothly. Preparing your backend now makes a massive difference for you and your business and your team members and your clients. So it's something that I always recommend to work on before you get too busy. Thank you again, and I hope this session helps you approach the season ahead with more clarity and less stress. Follow me on social media to find more tips on how to improve your operations. You see them there on the screen, and I hope to see you there. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Bye.